All right, after completing the cupcake base, you are going to start the frosting form. So the next thing that we have to make is a slab or a flat surface that sits on top of this. So what we're going to start with is a ball of clay that I want you to wedge. So take a minute or so to take your clay and hit it against the heel of your hand to pound out any air bubbles. Okay, from here, we're going to take this ball and we are going to flatten it out. So if you want at first, we can just pound a little bit in our hand. You can pound with the heel of the hand in the center and then go around the edges as well. Remember that every once in a while you should flip it so that it doesn't get stuck to the table and it starts to even out on the opposite side. Okay, for this slab, I'm looking for about the thickness of your pinky. So the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna take our cupcake base and we're gonna flip it upside down and put it on a slab. We're gonna take a cutting tool, and what I like to use is a toothpick because it has a sharp point and it's also skinny enough that we're not gonna make a thick border. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to basically take my toothpick, make sure that it is straight up and down, not at an angle, and trace the shape of my cupcake. All right, now that I have the indent of my cupcake, I'm going to take my toothpick one more time and I'm going to just follow that line so that I can cut it out with the toothpick. All right, so here is my slab for my frosting. This is going to be the piece that goes on top of my cupcake for the cake of the cupcake. So this is gonna be that breading. You're gonna soften the top of this because cupcakes usually don't have sharp edges. So it's nice that it has an edge that blends from the cupcake up, because the next layer that we're gonna add is the frosting. So this is the actual cupcake, and then we're gonna add the frosting on top. So I'm gonna continue just making this edge smooth and beveled. All I'm doing is scraping my wooden tool along the edge and turning it at the same time. And then I kind of give it more of an angle every once in a while so that it slowly has a curve on the edge. All right, once that is done, I'm going to peel this off. So now that I have the base of the cupcake here, I'm gonna add the frosting on top. So I'm going to use a little bit of clay to make a coil, and I'm going to draw a line on the inside of my cupcake, just a little bit in from the edge, so that we'll still be able to see the cupcake, and then this is where the frosting will start. So I want to get it close to the edge, and I'm kind of just trying to follow the line of my cupcake. We're going to get a piece of clay and start to roll the clay. If it becomes flat on two edges, hit the opposite edges to create more of a rectangle shape, and it should roll more smoothly. As I'm rolling this coil out, I'm starting in the middle, putting pressure on it as I'm rolling it out to the edges. That will give it more of a consistent thickness, and it will create a longer coil, giving it more length. Now, this is going to add to the thickness of the cupcake. So if this was the cupcake, we're gonna have this layer added to it and another slab. So we gotta think about how high we want our frosting to go. I like the general rule of keeping it about a pinky thickness. All right, from this coil, I am going to do the 4 S's to attach it onto my cupcake base. I'm going to score, take the toothpick and make scratch marks in a horizontal way, all the way around. And I'm just using that line that I created before as a guide of where my coil is gonna go. And then some vertical lines. All right, same thing goes for the coil. Make some vertical lines. And some horizontal. My second S is adding slip. If you don't mind about getting messy, you can use your finger and rub it on, or you can use a toothbrush to apply it. So you're just putting that on your score marks. Remember, this slip is like a clay glue. It helps bond them together. So if you put 2 pieces of clay together without the scratch marks or the scores, it's like putting clay together like this. It can shift apart, break easily. If you put the score marks in, it goes together like this so that it's harder to break those pieces apart because they have the grooves that they're fitting into. So I'm going to put the score marks on top of the score marks. So I'm going to tilt it, and I'm going to try and stay in that line, that guide that I made in the beginning. I'm going to line it up as best as I can. And then where it meets, I'm going to take the toothpick one more time and cut it. The next S is stick. So I'm going to put some pressure on the coil so that it sticks to the other piece of clay. So if I tip it over, it shouldn't fall off. The last S that I need to worry about is sealing them together. So it has this messy look on the outside. So what I'm going to do is take a tool, and I'm going to take one layer of clay and blend it down to the base of the next one. So I'm going to go around and slowly blend one layer of clay to the other. I'm going to do that on the inside and outside. All right, so I blended all the way around the edges, but you can still see all those marks that you made. These things can get cleaned up later with the variety of tools that you can use, or even just your finger or nail. So the next thing you're going to do is make sure that you get the inside as well. All right, after I blended the clay into the base, I kind of just cleaned it up by going around the edges with my tool. The next thing I'm going to do is make a second slab. So I have the second piece of clay that I'm going to flatten out. All right, this second piece can be a little bit smaller because now the slab goes on top of this coil. So we're gonna flip it upside down. And this time we're gonna take the toothpick, and you kind of need to get down low. So I'm actually getting eye level with the cupcake, and I'm going to follow the inside circle. And this time I kind of have to angle my toothpick to get it. Take it off, and then cut that piece out with your toothpick. Now we have to attach this piece again. So I'm gonna try and find, since mine is not perfectly circular, I'm gonna find how it fits the best and do the 4 S's one more time. So I'm gonna take my toothpick and I'm gonna score. All right, both pieces are scored. Now I'm gonna add the slip. I'm gonna flip it over, but remember, this time I have to match it up because it's not exactly a circle. All right, stick it on. So I'm gonna put pressure on those edges only, because now this section is hollow, so I'm only doing the edges. And then I'm going to seal. So I'm going to take the edge and kind of blend it into the next layer down. You can use your finger for this. I like to use the back of my fingernail and kind of smooth it over, or you can use a tool. I'm going to go in this direction first and then smooth it over in this direction. As I'm doing this, I'm making sure where I'm holding it, I'm being very gentle. My finger is on this hollow spot right here, where my thumb is. So I need to make sure that I'm putting hardly any pressure there. And most of my pressure is either here or close to the edge of my thumb, where the edge is. So now all I need to do is clean up my frosting because it looks a little bit messy. So I'm gonna smooth it out with my fingers or a tool. I think for smoothing, my fingers work best because my fingers are softer than a wooden tool. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is bevel that edge again so that we don't have a sharp frosting. So I'm gonna tilt my wooden tool at an angle so that we have a curve from the top to the side. And I'm just rotating it again. The last thing I need to do is just make sure that I have all the cleanup. So any of these little chunks of clay I can smooth out, or any imperfections I want to make as best as possible. After this, we can add the details on top. The one thing though that's very important is we have this slab, we have a coil, and we have a second slab, which means we made a hollow form, which means there's a huge air bubble in here, and if we heat it up, that air has to escape somewhere. Otherwise it might blow up. And I'm gonna flip it over to the bottom, and I'm going to just push the toothpick in so that I have an air escape route. It doesn't have to go all the way through. It just needs to go into that bottom chunk of clay. And there it is, your slab frosting for your cupcake.